Good morning. My name is Jennifer. Welcome into my home and into my kitchen here at All Things Kitchen. If you're new here, thank you for joining me today. If today is your first time here, I hope you enjoy hanging out with me today in the kitchen. I am going to be doing some recipe testing for cookie in a jar mix. I like the ease and convenience of having the whole cookie mix in a jar ready and waiting for me to go. It makes making homemade from scratch cookies a lot faster and easier rather than getting out all the ingredients to do. But I don't really care for the texture. Cookie in a jar generally calls for melted butter, and I don't really, it's not my favorite. So I'm going to be doing some testing and testing different methods, and maybe I might find a different way of how I want to do my cookie in a jar. So I'm going to be making a batch. Actually, these are all half batches. And just to make it level across the board, obviously the recipe is the same. It's just the technique that is going to be different. So I am using the standard Nestlé Toll House chocolate chip cookie recipe, and I have halved it. So since I'm making 4 batches, I obviously don't need, 100 cookies. So I will be freezing some for later, but I did want to be able to try the different techniques. One of the techniques is using melted butter. One is creaming the butter and sugar together prior to putting the other ingredients in. Another technique that I have just recently learned about, but it's usually used for cakes, is called reverse creaming. And that's where you cream the flour, the dry ingredients, with the butter, and then add the rest of the ingredients. And then I'm going to kind of do a reverse creaming, maybe not even call it creaming, but instead of melting the butter, just put the room temperature butter into all the ingredients. So those are the 4 techniques I'll be using, and I have them all labeled, and they're basically labeled melted butter, reverse cream full jar, creamed, which would be the technique of creaming the butter and sugar, and then flour reverse creaming. So reverse creaming in the typical manner that it's done. So I have all of my ingredients out and ready to go, and so I'm going to get you set up and bring it down here with me. Okay, I do have you set up here, pointed at my KitchenAid. I just want to let you see how I'm kind of labeling all of them. I have these little Post-it strips, like this one says melted. It's a pink strip. I have it on the pink lid, and I have bowls, mixing bowls with different colors that will match the lid. So once I have completed all 4 batches, excuse me, they will go into their corresponding bowl, so that everything is keeping track. So the first one we're going to be doing is using the melted butter. So I have all the ingredients in my jar that I'm just going to pour here into my KitchenAid. And that's all the dry ingredients. And I'll link the Nestlé Toll House recipe in the description box. I'm just using, like I said, just a standard Nestlé Toll House recipe, but it is halved. So I am going to put in, that's 1 cup of melted butter, 1 egg, 1 egg. Going to break the egg here into my measuring cup just to make sure it's a good egg. And a half a teaspoon of vanilla, but we're just going to measure, kind of eyeball that, and I usually always put more vanilla than what it calls for. So I'm just going to get this started and get this mixing. I'm going to start slow here at first. And I don't want to overmix, but I want to make sure everything is well incorporated. And then that didn't take long. So I have a cup of chocolate chips over here that I had measured out. So I'm going to go ahead, and I do already have my oven preheated to 375 degrees. Just give that a little mix and just see in there. You don't want to over mix it, but simple. That's what's so nice about cooking in a jar. I mean, just poof, it's done and ready. So what I'm going to do is, this was the pink bowl. So I'm going to find, got it right here. And especially because it used melted butter, I am going to put this in the bowl and put this bowl in the refrigerator. And I'm going to let all of these batters sit for about an hour before I cook them. So I'm not worried about cleaning off my spatula, really. I'm not going to worry about washing the bowl in between making these cookies, because they all have the same ingredients. It's just the manner, like I said, the manner in which they are prepared. So I'm going to, here is my cookie dough using the melted butter. And I simply just put all the ingredients in all at once and blended that together. There we go. So, like I said, my lid is labeled. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but it does say melted. And I'm going to put this in the refrigerator, and we're going to go on to the next one. The next recipe that I'm going to do is the creamed method. So I will be creaming my sugar and my butter together. And I have a half cup of room temperature butter, very soft. I live here in Florida, so room temperature butter for me might be different than room temperature butter for you. And even though it is February and today is somewhat of an overcast day, we still have humidity and warmth. So I am going to lift this up, and we're just going to cream the butter and sugar together first. Okay, I don't really need to scrape the sides of the bowl down because of the paddle style that I have, but there is some butter kind of stuck on the paddle, so I'm going to scrape the paddle a little bit and see if we can get that incorporated a little bit more. And I have, so this is the cream version, creaming the butter and sugar. And I'm putting in my dry ingredients. Probably should have put the bowl down a little bit. And we're going to start this off a little bit slow so we don't have the poop of flour going everywhere. And while that's starting, again, I'm going to grab my 1 cup of chocolate chips. Turn this up a little bit. And I'm going to add the egg. It's 1 egg. And the vanilla. And typically, if you were making a batch of cookies from scratch, you would cream the sugar and then put the egg and the vanilla in there and then put your dry ingredients in. But I still kind of want to maintain the integrity of the system of cookie in a jar. So that's why I cream the sugar and then put the rest of the ingredients in. And you see just a little bit here on the top of my paddles. We'll give it just a little bit of a scrape down. Now this dough, because we did cream the butter and sugar, looks very different. It's a lot lighter in color compared to the melted butter. Let me see if I can show you. Okay. So we are going to, again, get this in the green bowl. And so I am going to just kind of clean the batter off the paddle a little bit. Only, again, not to waste any. I'm not worried about from one batch to the next, a little bit of the dough being in the next batch. So, but what a difference the texture and color on this one is. This is the kind of cookie dough that, I mean, it's Nestlé Toll House cookie. You can't go wrong with that. I mean, I know that there are some great recipes out there, but this is basically a classic. So, could eat this straight like this myself. So, with great power and great strength, I am not licking spatulas or bowls. And my husband's laughing at me. So again, this is the creaming method. So I'm going to put this bowl in the refrigerator. Okay, so this method we're going to call reverse cream full jar. So basically, I have all of the ingredients in the jar, the dry ingredients, that is, along with the sugar. Sugar is considered a wet ingredient. And I'm going to add a full stick of room temperature butter. to add 1 egg. So we'll add that in. And the vanilla. So we will get that into place. And again, I'm going to start off slow so I don't send flour flying everywhere. And once it's mostly incorporated, I'll turn it up a little bit. And let's look how this one is looking. Turn that off. We'll add the chocolate chips. This one looks very similar to the, I mean, we're just talking the dough here, but it does look very similar to the cream method with creaming the butter and sugar as far as color goes. Melting the butter really just changed everything in that dough, but we'll also let it see what it looks like for sitting in the refrigerator for an hour or so. So again, we have this dough completed, and we will get this in the bowl that is labeled for reverse cream full jar. Back up a little bit there so you can see. Hopefully this will fit in the smaller bowl. I think it will. Looks like it was made for it. I wonder if you have any ideas once we find the results of this method, if you have any other cookies that you would like me to test and see if it makes a big difference for the end result using these different techniques, let me know. I'd be happy to try. I've been wanting some oatmeal cookies, so I could always try it with that, or I haven't made peanut butter cookies in a while. So there we go. Reverse cream full jar. Lid on that. Okay, so now we have the typical reverse creaming method, and that's where you cream the butter in the dry ingredients. Let me get my paddle in here and get my ingredients in the bowl. And my butter. So that's the dry and the butter. And we will save the egg and the vanilla when we add in the sugar. And we'll see how this one turns out. So I'll let that go together. I do have an older KitchenAid mixer. I actually found it on Facebook Marketplace. I think I paid like $75 or $80 for it, and that was maybe 4 years ago. Well, it was before 2020, so 5 or 6 years ago. And I have thoroughly enjoyed having this. And it's obviously an older style. And if it ever dies on me, I will not hesitate to spend the money on getting a new KitchenAid. So looking at that, that's just reverse creaming with the butter and flour, baking soda, salt, all that kinds of stuff in there. Like I said, I'll put the recipe in the description box. So I'm putting the sugar in. And vanilla. Now, according to the things that I've read and seen on reverse creaming, is it does help cut down on the gluten formation because it binds the fat in the flour. And so if you have any gluten issues, that you can have gluten, but maybe it upsets your stomach. Not quite celiac, but maybe just gluten intolerance. Maybe this is something that you can try. This is generally used, like I said, for cakes, but I'm going to try it with cookie mix here today. So let's take a look. Give that a blend. And I love that paddle that I have that scrapes the sides of the bowl. I see some people that have that paddle, but it doesn't seem to work for them. They still have to scrape the bowl. And I'm wondering if they have the wrong size paddle for the size of bowl that they have, because this one scrapes the bottom of the bowl beautifully, and sides, bottom and sides. So now just give that a blend. Oh, I want some chocolate chip cookies so bad right now. So this is my orange bottom bowl with my orange lid with the label on it, flour reverse cream. Get that out of the way. I don't know if it's just the older styles or if all KitchenAids just are so heavy. It's one item that I do not keep out on my counter. I did when I was hardcore into baking. I was baking, almost every other day. But once I backed off from not baking quite as much, I put the KitchenAid in the pantry so it wasn't out on the counter all the time. And moving it back and forth from my pantry to the kitchen, it's heavy. I've also wanted to have it painted, but I don't know how you find somebody for that. Because a lot of my appliances or tools, kitchen tools, pots, and some of my pots and whatnot, I like the red color, the deep red, and I have bought that color purposefully when I can, and I would love to have my KitchenAid painted red. But it's not something cheap that I want to try and endeavor myself or find somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, because it is an expensive piece of equipment. Even though I didn't pay full price for it, it's still very valuable to me. All right, so we have all 4 batches mixed, and like I said, I'm going to let them sit in the refrigerator for about an hour, maybe longer, I'm not sure. And then I will bring you back when we go to put them in the oven. So I'm going to get this in the refrigerator, and when we are ready to get everything in the oven, I'll have it all lined up, and we're just going to cook maybe 4 of each kind, just because, like I said, I don't need a whole bunch of cookies out right now, but I will freeze the rest. I'll go ahead and make them into cookie dough balls and freeze the rest after they have sat for that hour. So I'll bring it back when we're ready to do all that next step. Welcome back. It's been a little over an hour. We actually went out and ran some errands, did some grocery shopping and whatnot, and so has given the dough plenty of time to chill out in the refrigerator and become nice and firm. I have some little pieces of parchment paper that I wrote down each kind of cookie that it is, and I'm going to put them on the baking sheet somehow so that I can keep everything labeled properly. So I am going to go ahead. I've got 2 bowls out right now. I'm going to go ahead and get those on the cookie sheet. I'll bring you down here as I scoop the cookies out. Okay, so as you can see, I have the parchment lined up here, and this basically, underneath the parchment, it tells me exactly what it is, but what I have here are just the colors of the tops of the bowl. So I have 2 different sizes of cookie scoops. I think this one's too big. I don't want to do cookies this big. This one's too small. I need one just right. So I'm probably going to do about 2 scoops of this. This is a teaspoon scoop, and the yellow is the reverse cream full jar. So in other words, I had the contents of the jar, and I put in room temperature butter in the full contents of the jar, mixed all the ingredients together as you would. I didn't separate anything. I kept them all, put all the ingredients in at once. So I am going to do 3 cookies. I think that'll fit best. So that is the yellow, and that is the reverse cream of the entirety of the ingredients. The next method, and you can see the difference in color. So this one was with the melted butter. And this is the typical way that cookie in a jar is done, using the melted butter. And this is the one that I'm just not exactly happy with the texture on these, but I mean, a cookie is a cookie, right? You don't want to turn down a cookie, but if I can figure out a way to have the convenience and have a texture that I like a little bit better, then all is good. So that's 2 bowls. Let me swap these out because I want to keep the dough chilled. So I didn't want to bring all 4 out at once. The next bowl here, the green, This is the typical creaming method. So where you cream the butter and sugar and then add the dry ingredients. I'm trying to keep these all uniform in size. Obviously, we want them to cook all at the same rate. My oven is preheated to 375. And so I'm basically just doing a heaping scoop, and that's a teaspoon. So a heaping teaspoon. So that is the creamed, traditional creamed method. And then this is the reverse cream. So basically, I took the room temperature butter and creamed it with the flour and all the dry ingredients, and then added the rest of the wet ingredients: sugar, egg, vanilla. And so I'll get all of this in here, and I'll get this in the oven, baked up. I'm going to cook them for, like I said, I've got it at 375, and I'm going to cook these between 9 to 11 minutes, thereabouts. Let me get these bowls back in the refrigerator again. Be right back. Set the timer for 9 minutes. So I'll bring the cookies out after they're done baking. I'm going to put them out on a cooling rack, which I need to grab to get that out. And then we'll do some taste test and some visual test and see what my preference is. And I'll try, excuse me, sorry about that. We'll see what my preference is, and I will try to give you enough detail and show you so that you can choose your preference and see which one we like best and which way we're going to be doing cookie in a jar in the future. Okay, timer is going off. So I put them in originally for 9 minutes, and I added 2 more minutes onto their time. I'm going to give these a bang on my counter. Hold on, sorry. There we go. That's what I like to do with my cookies. And I'm going to set them here for about 5 minutes. Get some of this stuff out of the way. So I'm going to set these here for about 5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and set that timer for 5 minutes. And then after 5 minutes, I'm going to put them on the cooling rack, and we'll keep them in order, and we'll give them a test. Okay, I think the time has come for us to take a look at and analyze the cookies that we have here. I am going to cut each of these cookies in half and see what the, sorry about that, so we can see what the texture looks like. Of course, the chocolate chips might be in the way of that, so I'm getting a feel for just cutting. So that one, the reverse cream full jar, was a little bit, I don't want to say tougher, maybe crisper. And then the creamed method, the traditional creaming method, that one was definitely tougher, cutting it in half. So that's what I just cut. This is the traditional creaming method of baking the cookie. And you can see the front and back. It looks a little bit darker on camera than it does to me. This one right here is the reverse creaming full jar. You can see. Let me go back and show you the inside. This is the traditional creaming method. This one is using the melted butter. This one actually did not brown as much as the others did. And give you that. And then this is the reverse creaming. So I creamed the butter with the flour, salt, and baking soda, and then added the rest of the ingredients. So I'm going to try the taste of this one first. This is the reverse creaming. Has chew to it that I'm not used to in cookies. It's definitely a softer cookie. And obviously, taste-wise, I'm really expecting all of them to taste the same because it's the exact same ingredients in all of the recipes. I'm looking at texture. So that one, okay. This one is the melted butter. So the traditional cookie in a jar where you add the melted butter. This one's a little more cakier, softer, which I think you would expect with melted butter. I mean, yeah, that one's chewy, and this one's soft. Those are the first two. Now this is the reverse cream in the full jar. So all the ingredients were creamed with the room temperature butter. That one's very soft as well. Soft like the melted butter. Let me see if I can see a difference in those. Trying to not get so much chocolate in there. It's confusing the texture. These are similar, very similar. I don't know how to distinguish the difference. And this one is the traditional cream method. The nuances are slight between these four different styles. I can tell right away the reverse creaming, that's tough. And I don't care for a cookie. at least not with this recipe, not with a chocolate chip cookie. The cookie tastes good, but it's a little tough, and I don't care for that as much. As far as between the, let me try the melted against the creamed. I don't know. I don't know that there's enough of a difference to warrant going through extra work. This is the reverse cream. Reverse cream, let me try. Reverse cream melted. They're very similar. I think I prefer the reverse cream on the full jar. Didn't care for the reverse cream, just creaming just the flour and the dry ingredients. That one felt a little tough to me. But also, I don't know that I might need a second person's opinion. And now I'm just at the point where, you know, I've eaten almost 4 cookies, so it's hard to tell a difference here. I think I would go through the effort to do the reverse creaming on the full jar and not have to necessarily just cream the butter and sugar. The butter and sugar. So that way you can still have all the ingredients in your jar and use room temperature butter. That would be my preference. So what we have here, this is the reverse creaming. So this is mixing the room temperature butter with the flour with the dry ingredients. This is mixing all of the ingredients with melted butter. This is mixing all of the ingredients with room temperature butter. And this is creaming the butter and sugar prior to adding the rest of the ingredients. Let's see if I can get a better light. There we go. So they all look pretty similar. Let's see, they all got pretty flat. And they did chill in the refrigerator for several hours. So aging the dough always helps enhance the flavor. But that's where we're at with those. So it was a fun experiment to be had. I did learn a little bit anyway, and I hope that you did too. You can make an informed decision, hopefully with the information that I gave you, or maybe you can try it out yourself. Maybe we would see bigger differences in a different recipe. So like I said, if you have another cookie recipe that you would like me to try different techniques with, I would be happy to do that. If you liked what you saw here and want to see more, if you would consider giving this a thumbs up and subscribing for future videos, I'd be happy to bring you along with me in my kitchen here at All Things Kitchen as we experiment with food, do food preservation, and all sorts of different things here in the kitchen. I appreciate your time and you spending it with me today. I hope you had a great week. I hope you had a great day. I'll see you next time. Take care.